Nature has rules, and the octopus has not read a single one of them. In this video, you're going to see why that matters, because the octopus didn't just get smart. It got smart in a way evolution was not supposed to allow. And if the octopus can do it with no family, no culture, and barely 2 years of life, then most of what we think intelligence requires might be wrong. The octopus lives alone. It has no shell, no family, no tribe. It hatches in the open ocean without a parent in sight and gets roughly 2 years to figure out how the world works before its own body begins shutting down. No guidance, no inheritance, no second chances. And yet, this creature plans. It solves puzzles it had never seen. It recognizes specific human faces. It pulls pranks, and it nurses grudges. So be honest, does that sound like an animal? Or something closer to a mind? An animal with every disadvantage evolution could assign, somehow breaking the one rule that was supposed to make intelligence impossible without them. The strangeness of the octopus is not really about the 8 arms, or the ink cloud. Those are weird, sure, but they are not the thing that should keep you up at night. The thing that should keep you up at night is the brain. We understand reasonably well how intelligence grows in nature, but the octopus skipped every ingredient. It does not bond with others, does not live in a group, does not raise its young, and doesn't pass anything on to the next generation. A female octopus will starve herself to death guarding her eggs, then die before those eggs have hatched into thinking animals. Her children will never know her. She will never know them. Every single octopus that has ever crawled across the ocean floor started life with a blank slate. No inherited knowledge, no social foundation, nothing. And still, every generation figures it out. That is the real question at the heart of this video. Not just what the octopus can do, but how it became capable of it all. And there's one detail that makes the whole story even stranger. Most of the octopus's brain isn't in its head. We'll come back to that because it changes everything. Here is something that sounds like it should be in a science fiction novel, but is completely verifiably true. Complex intelligence evolved independently in 2 completely separate branches of the animal kingdom, with no shared ancestry and no exchange of information between them, separated by more than 600 million years of evolutionary history. The first branch is ours: vertebrates, fish, amphibians, reptiles, birds, mammals. One long lineage of increasingly complex brains, each generation inheriting and building on what came before. A slow, continuous accumulation of neural sophistication stretching across geological time. The second branch is cephalopods: squid, cuttlefish, nautilus, and the octopus. No shared wiring diagram with us humans. No common ancestry who set them on the path toward complex thought. Just a completely separate evolutionary experiment, running in parallel on the same planet, that independently arrived at minds capable of learning, remembering, and solving novel problems. If it had only happened once, you could call it a coincidence. Happening twice makes it look more like a pattern. And the octopus lineage is far older than most people realize. Cephalopod ancestors were already navigating the oceans 330 million years ago. Long before the dinosaurs, before the continents settled into their current shapes, before most recognizable land life existed. Early octopus fossils show 10 limbs instead of 8. One species preserved in rock nearly 300 million years old, Pulsepia mazanensis, already had the familiar body plan: 2 eyes, 8 arms, possibly an ink sac. This was not a creature still finding its feet. By the time mammals arrived on scene, the octopus design had been already optimized for so long, it had essentially stopped evolving. It did not need to change. It had already solved the problem. Because intelligence showing up twice isn't just rare, it suggests the rules might be more like guidelines. And somehow, that is still not the strangest part. Human blood is red because it runs on iron. Octopus blood is blue, because instead of iron, it runs on copper. The protein is called hemocyanin, and it operates on an entirely different molecular principle. In warm, oxygen-rich environments, copper-based blood is actually less efficient than iron-based blood. But drop the temperature and strip away the oxygen, the conditions found in deep, cold ocean water, and copper pulls ahead. Hemocyanin grips oxygen more effectively in exactly the environment where hemoglobin starts to fail. So the octopus rewrote its own circulatory chemistry to match the world it lives in. Different metal, different molecules, built for a different ocean. Hemocyanin is extremely sensitive to changes in water acidity. As the ocean absorbs more carbon dioxide from the atmosphere, and its pH slowly drops, the copper protein begins to lose the ability to bind oxygen properly. The circulatory system that made the octopus a master of the deep becomes a liability in more acidic water. This is an animal that outlasted the asteroid that wiped out the dinosaurs, that survived 5 separate mass extinctions across hundreds of millions of years. Now it faces a threat that is not dramatic or sudden, but just a quiet, incremental shift in ocean chemistry that targets one specific weakness in its blood. Nature's most resilient survivor, potentially undone by a shift in pH. If the ocean keeps acidifying, do you think octopuses adapt again? Or is this one problem even intelligence can't solve? And then there are the hearts, 3 of them. 2 are dedicated to the gills, pumping blood through, collecting oxygen. The third, called the systemic heart, distributes that oxygen-rich blood to the rest of its body. It sounds like a well-engineered redundancy, the kind of overbuilding that makes sense when failure isn't an option. Except the systemic heart stops beating every time the octopus swims. Like literally just stops. Mid-swim, the main pump goes offline. Sustained swimming is genuinely exhausting for an octopus in a way it is not for most animals, because the act of swimming essentially shuts down its cardiovascular system, which is why octopuses spend most of their lives crawling rather than swimming, using jet propulsion only in short emergency bursts, and have developed arm-based locomotion so precise and flexible that they rarely need open water speed at all. Rather than fix the flaw, the octopus built its entire movement strategy around it. When your heart quits during a sprint, you stop sprinting, and you make sure your walk is good enough that sprinting becomes optional. And that's not even the strangest part. The octopus is wired backwards. It has around 500 million neurons, comparable in number to a dog, which is impressive on its own. But about 2/3 of those neurons aren't in the brain at all. They're distributed through the arms themselves, in dense clusters called ganglia, roughly 65 million neurons per arm. Each arm has its own local processing center that can evaluate information and make decisions entirely on its own, without waiting for instructions from above. When an octopus reaches into a dark crevice looking for a crab, the arm does not send a signal to the brain saying what it found and then waits for orders. The arm feels, tastes, assesses, and responds, all locally, all immediately, all without central approval. The brain sets the general agenda. The arms run the operation. That's the detail I hinted at earlier. The octopus didn't evolve a bigger brain. It evolved a different kind of mind. And the suckers add another layer entirely. Each of the roughly 2,000 suckers on an octopus's arm is lined with chemical receptors, identifying whatever the sucker touches. This means the octopus is not just feeling its environment, it is simultaneously tasting it, across hundreds of contact points at once, building a detailed chemical map of every surface it encounters. Its fingers have tongues, all 2,000 of them. For the octopus, intelligence is not a concentrated thing that lives in a specific place. It is distributed across the whole body. Every arm thinks. Every sucker reads. The entire animal is, in some sense, a mind. And that's not even the end of it. The octopus eye is a remarkable piece of independent engineering. It developed entirely separately from vertebrate eyes, no shared ancestor, no borrowed design, and arrived at an almost identical solution. Lens, iris, retina, the whole package. Two completely unrelated evolutionary processes, working across a 600 million year gap, both converging on the same basic architecture for capturing light. There is one place where the octopus eye actually improves on ours. Human eyes have a blind spot, a small gap in the visual field caused by the optic nerve passing through the retina on its way to the brain. The octopus retina has the wiring routed behind the photoreceptors instead, which means no interruption in the visual field, cleaner design, no blind spot. So the octopus has a better eye than we do, more or less. And it is, as far as current research can determine, colorblind. Take a moment with that. This animal produces some of the most accurate, fastest, and visually complex camouflage found anywhere in nature. It can match the color, texture, and three-dimensional surface of a coral reef, a rocky seabed, or a patch of sand in under a second, in real time, with no preparation. It's not just changing color, it is sculpting its own skin into the shape of its surroundings. And by every test researchers have been able to run, it cannot see the colors it is matching. The answer, it turns out, may be that the octopus isn't relying on its eyes for this at all. Scientists have found light-sensitive proteins called opsins, the same molecular components that make eyes work, scattered across the skin of octopuses and their relatives. These proteins can detect light and potentially wavelength information directly, without any involvement from the visual system. The skin of the octopus may be reading the colors of its environment and responding to them automatically, without a single conscious visual decision being made. It is not processing color. It is not choosing a disguise. Its skin is simply reacting to light and becoming whatever the light says it should be. And if all of that wasn't enough, this is where the story becomes almost unfair. So why did the octopus get so smart? Here's the question nobody has answered yet. How does an animal with no social life, no parents, no cultural hand-me-downs, and barely 2 years on the clock end up this intelligent? The answer is surprisingly simple. The octopus did not get smart in spite of where it lives. It got smart because of it. Picture the daily reality of being an octopus. You live inside a coral reef, one of the most dense, unpredictable, visually overwhelming environments on the planet. Every shadow could be a hiding spot or a threat. Every surface shifts in color and texture. The things you are trying to eat are not cooperating. Crabs come armored and clawed, clams seal shut the moment they sense movement, and fish are faster than you the second you hit open water. In that world, being smart is not an advantage, it is the only option. Every other survival route was either too expensive or simply off the table for an animal that committed to being boneless hundreds of millions of years ago. The octopus could not armor up, so it wised up instead. What the octopus got in return was a nervous system capable of running 8 semi-independent arms, thousands of color-shifting skin cells, over 2,000 chemically sensitive suckers, and a layered visual system, all at the same time, all in real time, reacting to a reef that changes in milliseconds. The human brain has 86 billion neurons built for language, planning, and navigating complex social worlds. The octopus has 500 million neurons built for one thing: solving the immediate, physical, ever-shifting puzzle of staying alive in the reef. One is not better than the other. They are both exactly what their environments demanded, and proof that intelligence is not a single destination, but a solution shaped entirely by the problem it was built to solve. If intelligence can invent itself twice, from completely different starting points, in completely different body plans, operating on completely different principles, then the universe probably doesn't need to specifically produce a mind. It just needs the right pressure, applied long enough, to the right kind of problem. Which means intelligence, out there, is probably not rare. It is probably not waiting to look like us. It's probably already everywhere, in forms we would not recognize. Running on chemistry we have not imagined, thinking in ways we cannot begin to map. We built our understanding of intelligence on a small sample set. The octopus has been sitting in the ocean this entire time, quietly living proof that every single one of those so-called requirements is optional. 2 years of life, no culture, no inheritance, no social memory. Its blood is blue, one of its hearts stops mid-swim, and it can taste everything it touches through 2,000 tiny chemical sensors. It is built from what looks, on paper, like a list of design flaws. And it is, without question, one of the most cognitively sophisticated creatures this planet has ever grown. So did the octopus break the rules of evolution? Not exactly. It exposed how incomplete those rules were to begin with, because we assumed that intelligence required long lives, social learning, cultural inheritance, and centralized control. The octopus has none of that. It lives for 2 years. It dies alone. It never teaches anything to anyone. One of its hearts stops mid-swim, and yet, it built one of the most complex nervous systems on Earth. Intelligence happened twice on this planet, in 2 completely separate biological architectures. So here's the real question. If intelligence can emerge in 2 radically different body plans, how many other versions of mind might exist that we wouldn't even recognize as thinking? I want your take on this. Do you think intelligence is something social, or something driven purely by survival pressure? And if this changes the way you think about evolution, subscribe, because the next creature we look at pushes this idea even further.